My name is Victoria Boris, and my research presentation is going to be on team interpreting. So, just a brief history on team interpreting. It was introduced in the late 1970s, early 1980s. This was because when an interpreter was at an assignment, people started to notice that about 30 minutes into it, the quality of interpretation would start to decline due to fatigue. Right around the same time period, repetitive strain injury became prevalent in the interpreting community. And this is defined as pain from overuse. So, interpreting. uh, so, to help alleviate some of this, they implemented team interpreting. So, what is team interpreting? Well, it's exactly that. It is two or more interpreters working collaboratively and interdependently to prevent fatigue and ensure accuracy in the target language. So, when do we need a team? Well, there are a couple things you need to consider when deciding if you need to go to an assignment as a team. One of those being the length of the assignment. So typically, 50 minutes or more warrants a team. Another one would be the density or the complexity of the content. So if it's a bio lecture, you probably need a team for that. The size of the room. So if it's a really large room or if there are obstacles like pillars in the way, you probably need a team for that. And then also the presence of individuals who require tactile or close vision interpretation, such as a deaf-blind person. So then where do they sit? There are a couple different options for placement in terms of team interpreting. There is the traditional, it's one up front and one off to the side. And this just allows for the off interpreter to be there and to help feed and to know when to switch, things like that. And then there's side by side interpreting. So this is a more collaborative, interdependent way of interpreting. This allows a bit more flexibility when it comes to your feeding. You can use voice, you can whisper, and it allows for less disruption with switching as well because you're not moving. So role delineation. Excuse me. Who does what? Well, both obviously need to be prepared, arrive early, and they're going to do their intros, set up, and then the on interpreter, they'll be the interpreter in the hot seat, and then the off interpreter is going to be there for support, for feeding, things like that. So they need to remain in the room, be paying attention, pay attention to the time, make sure that they switch in a timely manner, things like that. The feeding styles. Everybody has their own preference for everything, right? So, obviously, we'd have our own preference for feeding styles. Now, there's a couple different options for that. You can do whole concepts. You can do single words or signs or visuals. So, those things preferably should be discussed before the assignment, obviously, so that everything works cohesively. Now, what are the benefits of team interpreting? Well, we've already talked a little bit about that, but I'm going to go a little more in depth with the side-by-side teaming. So the side-by-side teaming, obviously there is less movement with switching. You can give vocal feed, but there's also you work interdependently to interpret. So that means if the interpreter in the hot seat is struggling with a concept, then the off interpreter can jump in and help if need be. things like that. And then there's also the option to work individually as a team. And an example of something like that would be maybe in a court setting. One of the interpreters could be interpreting for the judge, while the other interpreter could be interpreting for the jury. And they're completely individuals in those interpreting situations, but they are there as a team. And this allows less for support, but more for to make points a little more clear with who's speaking and things like that. There's also the benefit of task delegation. Mentorship and feedback. So it's really nice if a newer interpreter is assigned with another interpreter, and that's very helpful in terms of feedback. They can utilize that interpreter as a mentor almost. So there was actually a study done, and the study did conclude that errors started to increase dramatically at 30 minutes, but the interpreter didn't realize it. So they were allowed to trade at a certain time, and they chose not to because they wanted to keep going, but they didn't even realize that the errors started to increase. So how do we achieve full team effort? Well, just you gotta have a clear shared goal, a good rapport, a good working relationship, and a clear view of how the team can work together. So definitely communication and things like that. So there we go. That is team interpreting. Thank you very much.